New fields every couple days, so sometimes the surface changes, the hardness of it. Some grass is shorter, some grass is longer, some grass is in it. It kind of sounds funny, but if the grass is greener, it's wetter, so it's going to skip faster. It all takes, you have to take pretty much all that into consideration, and you try to get out early, during batting practice and take some picks. But another thing too is how they throw them.
So each infielder is a little bit different on how the ball comes out?
Yeah, so some guys, if the ball runs a little bit, it might skip and, take a hop this way. J.J. Hardy throws a perfect four-seam, it's going to skip and usually probably stay down.
Right.
He doesn't have the balls that kind of come up. Guys that throw down here and, they got a little bit of sink, it's going to probably bounce and come up.
So what about, so if you're out here, say take a normal position out here,
okay,
and what about ground ball to J.J. Hardy? Show us a little footwork here, and then what are you doing when you're coming over to the bag? What are you specifically, how are you setting your feet? And then when you're stretching, or stretching too soon, too late, how important that is not to do some of those things, or to do some of those things and do it properly.
Yeah, when you're playing back here, you want to get to first base as quick as possible, because you don't want, your infielder to be sitting there pumping a couple times, then he loses, his momentum. So you try to get to the bag as quickly as possible. I start with being left-handed, I start with my left foot on the bag, right foot off this way, and as he's getting ready to throw, I'll make sure, an important thing is not to stretch too soon, because like I said, if you got a guy that has a little bit of sink or a little bit of cut, at the end, and sometimes they don't even do it on purpose, just the way they grab the ball, sometimes they're not perfectly grabbing that four-seam rotation. So as soon as I see the ball in the air, and it's maybe 10, 15 feet in front of me, that's when I'll begin to, make my stretch for the ball.
Once you get over here, set your foot, I noticed where your foot was on top of the bag, and then you moved kind of off to the side. Why are you moving it off to the side, and what are the reasons why you don't want to stay up on top of the bag?
Well, I mean, nowadays with instant replay and whatnot, an inch makes a huge difference. So if the throw's coming from this side of the diamond, catcher, a little bunt out in front of home plate, or to the shortstop, you want to be as close to the ball as possible. Game's all about inches. The throw's coming from this side of the diamond, second base, I'll move my foot this way, because if it's here, that's just what, 6 to 8 inches, that's just that much further the ball has to travel to get into your glove.
I noticed that you were there also, is that you're here to start out with, but then you're getting that foot out of the way. Is that just a matter of happening because you're stretching, or are you doing that by design?
Yeah, it's happening because you're stretching, but you also don't want your foot, towards the back, because you're also trying to close that distance down. And another thing too is you're going to get your heel stepped on and potentially get hurt. So you want to keep your foot towards the front of the bag. Don't stretch too early. That's probably one of the main important things, because you could stretch early, and the ball looks like it's going to be here, but then by the time it gets to you, it's down here.
Now, what about on pickoff throws? Where are you setting up on a pickoff throw from the pitcher? Okay, and how are you receiving that ball, trying to cut? Again, I know a lot of people talk about, we see right-handers maybe a little bit disadvantaged because they got to catch it and bring it back, where you're fortunate to be left-handed, you can kind of catch the ball a little deeper and let the ball travel.
Yeah, I put my right foot right up against the bag. I don't want to be right at the pitcher with my left foot, because if he throws something this way, it's just that much harder to get to. But I try to keep my feet, pretty square, shoulder width, and when he picks off, I don't want to go get the ball. Guys that catch the ball out here, and that's a long distance that you have to come. Granted, the throw, it takes you in different areas, but I try to just leave my glove right here, and hoping he can throw it in that area. But as soon as he throws it right in this area, instead of going to get it, I'm just going to hold my glove here and then just down with the tag. It's a lot quicker than having to go get it, bring it all the way down. That ball is going to travel a lot faster, in that 1 foot, then you can bring it back with your arm.